that our government works. At least in the second half of the 20th century, it became about continuity of government. It became about saving their own skin, protecting their own futures and their own wealth. And I don't necessarily even mean just our government or our military, but sort of a worldwide movement. And I think there has to be a deal in place. Why didn't we go back to the moon? They can say we figured out everything we needed to figure out, but I think that's a chicken answer to say we stopped sending people to the moon, because NASA's official position still is that there's no such thing as extraterrestrial life. There are no little green men. There are no aliens. We've never seen any. We know nothing about it. Yet when they went up there, one of the things they left behind, in addition to the flag, was a recording, was a greeting. That seems odd that we took the time to record a greeting and leave it up there if we were certain that there was nothing else in the universe. So that tells you maybe what you need to know there.
Yeah.
They seem to be loosening up a little bit. Have you noticed that the pictures that come back from Mars now, presumably, they're not tinting them red or pink anymore? Does anybody notice it looks like New Mexico? You know, and the first ones that we saw were red. It's like, wow, it really is a red planet. Look, even the air is red. It's like, no, not really.
We're attuned to see what we've seen from the movies, and so NASA's serving us up a sort of the NBC Olympics version of Mars. You know what I mean? Like, this is kind of what we expect to see, so we're going to make the sky a certain color and the ground a certain color, and you know, these are tricks that they play. They up the contrast. They block out certain areas. I've seen plenty of NASA photos that they've released where they've either intentionally put a blur or a black bar or a black triangle over an area they don't want us to see, and they're pretty good at it, but they're not great at it. So you'd be surprised how many touched-up photos there really are, you know?
Nothing would surprise me at this point. How long do you figure people have been drawing flaming discs or, you know, elliptical shapes describing flying craft? I mean, how far back does that go?
Paintings of the Vimanas in India, you know, 2,000 years ago.
The Sumerians, yeah.
The Sumerians, the hieroglyphs in Egypt. I mean, it's been going on. As long as we've been able to record history, we have included some sort of space flight or some sort of alien craft. The church kind of whitewashed it, but for a time in the 14 and 1500s, there were tons of religious paintings that included not even alien imagery, but like flat-out UFOs and spacecraft and stuff that were in some of these religious paintings. And they sort of got away from it, but that was a shocker for me.
In India, there was always this flying carpet thing, and I couldn't help but think that if you show a primitive culture that's located in some really isolated area a photograph of themselves, they won't recognize it as a photograph of themselves. They just look at it. I mean, I've read this over and over and over again from different sources, and I'm just wondering, if you behold a craft like that, you can't really relate to it. You can grasp the concept, but you don't really grasp the shape because it's so totally unlike anything you've ever seen. And I'm wondering if maybe that's why it wound up as just a simple carpet, just something that flew. I mean, a lot of times cultures try and soften the blow of the truth a little bit by making it slightly more fanciful, so it's not quite as frightening to behold once they've reproduced it on in a form of art. How long ago did you say that these objects of and consistently the same shapes began to appear in paintings?
4,000 BC, maybe earlier. I mean, cave paintings.
I mean, that's okay. Well, I think we've determined that it's a real thing. So, can you shed a little bit of light on the proverbial men in black? Just a little.
Reports of dark figures at famous UFO events or famous events in history, human history, have been around for over 1,000 years. One of the things I learned during the show is that there were men in black that were seen during the Black Plague on the edges of these towns where the plague would break out. Many people say they saw hooded, cloaked figures, and it's actually those people, those depictions, that became our interpretation of the Grim Reaper. So people have been claiming to see these figures for over 1,000 years at these events. There are two main theories about Men in Black. One is that, kind of like the movie, these are humans who investigate on behalf of the government and cover up and help sort of keep the secret. And then there are the second theory, which is that there are aliens who are doing the exact same thing, but they're extraterrestrials and not human.
Oh boy. Well, I've heard over the years that political affiliation has a lot to do with whether or not those at the highest level of government are permitted access to information regarding UFOs. Have you picked up anything along the way that had anything pointing specifically at that?
Republicans get to know and Democrats don't.
If you hadn't said it, I was going to, I promise.
Yeah, and this is based on a theory put forward even in the Blue Planet Project that President Eisenhower signed a peace accord with an alien race in 1954 in Palm Springs. Kennedy then, there's a memo dated, I think it's the 12th of November, 1963, where Kennedy basically says he kind of wants to get to the bottom of the UFO phenomenon, and when he gets back to town, he wants to know more about it. He's assassinated 10 days later. Nixon apparently joked with friends about, I'll take you to this thing and I'll show you these bodies and this stuff we have. Carter quite famously said he was going to blow the lid off this thing and then later said it's a lot harder to get the information than you think. Clinton also was not able to get that information. So I think that's where people got that Republicans versus Democrats thing. But it may be more a question of whether or not you were an outsider or an insider. If you were connected to the intelligence community and part of that insider beltway kind of government, then you probably had a better chance of getting access to that information than if you were, say, a peanut farmer and a governor of a relatively small state.
Yeah, that's cold, isn't it? But seems to be true. The only guy who can get a good deal is the guy that doesn't need one.
Right.
You know.